Hello and welcome to Thank You Half Hour. My name is Tom Christopher Warren. I am your host and cannot be more excited to be back in the studio with Joe and Ben. My guys, love them so much here at Boxland. We've taken a little hiatus and we're back. It's very exciting and I couldn't be more pumped to have my guest today, who's a very dear friend, West End star, Broadway star, Olivier Award nominee, multiple Tony Award nominee, multiple Drama Desk winner. Please welcome mega giga star, Mr. Gavin Lee. Gavin.
That's me. That's my intro. It all goes down from there.
Oh, it's so good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I am 5 hours ahead of you because I'm back over here in England for a job. It's funny, since the pandemic, can't get hired on Broadway. Literally since 2021, when the theatre started again. Oh, England wants me. New York, not so much. So this is the third time I'm back here doing a nice, lovely big job.
That is amazing. I mean, so most of my tens of listeners probably recognize you as Squidward, and we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it must be said that you have, and I will say that in doing a little bit of research about you, your West End career is kind of boggling. I mean, it's wild that you were a bona fide West End star before you even made your mark here on Broadway as Bert in Mary Poppins. Tell me a little bit about the beginnings of Gavin Lee's career.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're very kind saying a bona fide star. I mean, you know, Mary Poppins was the big break for me.
Sure. Way
back in 2004, we we world premiered that show in London. But before that, you know, I started my career in 1990. So I left college in 1990. And my first job was on a cruise ship. And the principal of the college was like, "You're leaving college to go on a cruise ship?" She was not impressed. But yeah, I did like a year and a half cruise. And it was the first time I'd been to America because we rehearsed in London, but then we flew to New York and joined the ship in New York, and Sophia Loren christened the ship. And
What?
I just thought I was in heaven. Tony Bennett was the headliner in the show in New York Harbor before we then set off, you know, doing a regular Caribbean cruise. But,
sure.
You know, I got to see the world. I always tell students and anyone who wants some advice, never poo-poo the cruise route to start off your career, because I always feel I left college a year early, and if I'd stayed for that last year, I just would have been doing the same classes and the same stuff. And if I'd got into a West End show in the ensemble immediately, I would have been doing the same thing for a whole year. But going out on those cruise ships, you were doing a different show every night, and you were seeing the world, and I was getting paid for the first time as a performer, and it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then I came back and I did get into my West End show, first West End show, which was Me and My Girl, which of course did not with me, but it transferred to Broadway with Robert Lindsay, won the Tony, and it ran for a good few years at the Marquee, I think.
Yeah.
But it was a massive hit in London. It did 8 years, and I did the final year just in the ensemble of the show. So that was my first West End show, and I mean, it couldn't be more up my street. It was very
on
Cockney, oi, oi, and very musical comedy from the 1930s, which is kind of then has always been my wheelhouse, really. Yeah. I'm not doing your Dear Evan Hansen's or your Next to Normals, you know, that's just not me.
Not that you couldn't.
Then after Me and My Girl, I got into the original cast of Crazy for You as a swing, which was, again, another eye-opener. And I always say, give my advice is, if you get offered a swing in your first couple of shows, do it, because it's the hardest thing in the world, but you learn so much, you become invaluable to the company.
Yeah.
And it's such a learning experience. And I've stayed with Crazy for You for 4 years. It did 3 years in the West End. And by the time it went on the national tour, I was playing the lead. So I kind of worked my way up in Crazy for You as swing, dance captain, understudy, the lead. Oh, resident director for a bit, play the lead. So that was an amazing show. And that's when I first met Susan Stroman. And I I did 3 shows in the West End for Susan.
That is incredible.
Which was, again, another way to learn a trade. Watch Miss Stroman. She's an amazing person.
Somebody was asking me recently about formal education versus learning via other routes, and or someone asked, I suppose, what's the advice that you have for young actors? And the advice is always study, and that can look any different. That can look like anything. It can look like sitting in a room with Susan Stroman and watching like a hawk. It can look like going to university. It can look like serving as a swing for your first job. I swung my Broadway debut, and there's something about training your brain to look through that lens and sort of look big picture, right? There's something mathematical about it, to see patterns and see shapes, and it takes you out of the you and makes you look at something much more holistically. And that served me moving forward. That served me as a director working as a swing. So
it's true. I mean, I never believed when I was sitting in rehearsals, because it's a hard job for an original West End cast or original any cast if you're the swing, because you are just sitting watching. There's no time for the director to let you get up and have a go, unless someone breaks their leg or has to go for a costume fitting, and you're like, then you're thrown on. And I never believed when I was scribbling notes down for the 10 tracks that I covered that I would ever learn it all. But because I stayed with that show so long, I would say 6 months into that run, I didn't need my Bible anymore. For anyone who doesn't know a swing, you write your Bible, meaning you write every single person you cover, you write out exactly what they do, when they pick their nose, when they change the bow tie, when they put their tattoos on, where they sit in the quick change room, you're not pissing anyone else off. I was like, so apart from all the dance steps you're doing on stage in different positions, there's all the backstage choreography. And I never thought I'd be able to learn all that. And then within 6 months of being thrown on for all these different parts, it just goes in, and I didn't have to look at my Bible anymore. And I knew 10 tracks off book. Who do you need me to go on for? And then you know what it's like. You get into the second year of a run, and 4 men are off, and there's 2 swings. So in I Got Rhythm, which is the craziest number in the world, you've got to be Adam, and you've got to be John, and you've got to run over and be Gary, you've got to pick up that pan, you've got to do that pickaxe. It was crazy. It was crazy, but it was fabulous. But I have a great Stroman story. So in auditions, it's like the third call back, and we're all sort of in a line. There's 20 of us left for for sort of like 10 roles, 10 ensemble roles. And she goes along and she says, so what acro do you have? And someone said, I can, do a cartwheel, a backflip, whatever. And I'm like, I can't do anything. I can hoof a bit, I can tap dance a bit. That's about it. And I thought I could do a cartwheel. That's literally it. And not these days. I think anyone in an audition, boys especially, you have to be able to backflip and do everything.
Oh yeah,
you have to do everything compared to what you have to do in the early 90s.
And you have to do it on a still stage. Yeah.
Yes. And so she's going along, and then gradually a few people said, just basic acro. And she was happy with that. So she comes to me, and I just go, basic acro, which is fine. Cut to, an audition later, I get offered the role of swing, and we're in tech. And this fabulous actor called Adam, who was the acro guy in the show. There's kind of one acro guy, and he actually backflip, grab a pickaxe, jump over it, and things like that. So he goes off, doesn't he? He calls out, he's injured. And so, Gav, quick, get up on stage. And we get to this section, and I do, the music's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I see this big backflip, and everyone's staring at you in the middle of the most energetic, crazy for you, I Got Rhythm routine ever. And I do this crappy cartwheel and try and make it look like something. We get to the end of the number, and Susan Stroman comes up to me. She goes, in the audition, I thought you did acro. And I looked at her with a smile. I went, basic acro, thinking she might smile. She didn't smile. She literally pivoted on her shoes and walked away. And I was like, I'm never getting employed by her again. Thank God I did, but I do love. I love my answer. I thought you did acro. Basic acro. Meaning a cartwheel. Rubbish.
Yeah, but you're all limbs, so that cartwheel's got to look
exactly.
impressive.
As long as my legs and arms were straight, it looked fancy.
See?
Because it's like, look at that 6'2" guy doing a cartwheel.
I'm going to write a strongly worded email to Susan Stroman telling her that she should appreciate your cartwheel.
Exactly.
Even though we've never met.
Lord.
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead, actually, in questions, since you mentioned swinging. I recently, well, I guess I didn't see you, but when Encores did Oliver last year, and you were hired to stand by for Raul Esparza, right?
Yep.
For
Yep.
Fagin. And you know, those things are so fast. They're so short. The contracts are you rehearse for 5 minutes and then you perform for 10 minutes. And so, you know, they hire stars and they're going to be fine and nobody goes out. And he went out and you went on and you killed the game. Like, did you have even a moment of rehearsal with the other company, with the rest of the company?
No. So I heard they were doing Oliver 9 months before. And I said to my agent, can you get me on the list for Fagin? I want to be Fagin. Yeah. I would be great.
Yes.
You know, you got to, as an actor, I would be great for it. It would be stupid not to hire me. Cut to, it was 3 months before it's going to happen. You had an offer for Mr. Salisbury. And I'm like, okay, I haven't been on Broadway recently. You know, it's who you know. And if you're in a show at the time, or you're a hot potato, we're going to get you in, you know. So I was like, oh no, I have not done an encores. I want to do an encores. So yeah, I'd be interested in that. Well, it's Mr. Salisbury, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's The Undertaker. He has a lovely song called That's Your Funeral in Act 1. And then they were like, and then ensemble. And I was like to my agent, I don't want to be grand, but I don't really want to be trying to kick my legs up in Consider Yourself,
right,
as the wheelbarrow guy,
right.
You know, with clearly there's going to be 20-year-olds doing backflips.
Sure.
With, you know, so if I could just be Salisbury, that would be great. Yeah. Well, you know, a week later they come back. No, it's Salisbury ensemble or nothing. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're leaving that one. A bit annoyed, but you know, right. you put your foot down and you stick to your guns.
Yep.
Cut to a month later. Okay, they decided they might be looking for a standby for Raul. Just for Raul. There wasn't any standbys for a Nancy or a Bill sides. You know, just for Raul.
Right.
Just for Fagin. Would you be interested? I think yes. I'm doing nothing. I want to get in the room with the director, and I want to be involved in an encores. So that's fine. Knowing that I'm going to sit in, because the rehearsals are just under 2 weeks, knowing I'm going to sit in the corner and not even get looked at.
Yeah.
And basically, so I sit there watching Raul do a fantastic job. And throughout the whole 2 weeks, just every time the director and the choreographer walked past me, they just looked at me with kind of praying hands, like, oh, and like, or a touch on the arm, like, oh, we're so glad you're here. But they didn't really know what to say to me.
Sure.
It was like, we're so glad you're here, but I really don't have time to engage with you. Thanks for saying yes. So I was like, okay, but hell, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready if there's a chance Raul Esparza breaks his legs. Not that I would want that for him.
Of course.
So I got to one of the assistant directors and I said, every single day, do you have an hour free in the schedule to go over the lines with me? And she went, yeah. So we literally went up to Leia de Besnay's, the director's office, every day for an hour, and she'd just read the lines, and I'd do the blocking in an office of what I'd seen Raul do. Yeah. And then every time in the second week they went to lunch, I would get on the stage in the rehearsal room where they mark out all the stairs and the set, all on my own. Just like, I know where I'm standing. I'm not going to knock a Fagin's gang kid over if I was put on. And then so I know what I'm doing. I know it, but I haven't said a word to any other actor. You know, I haven't practiced, done anything. And then suddenly, it was a Sunday and I came in and they said, Raul's gone to the ENT. He has something wrong. A nodule or something. I don't want to put words into his, give him an illness he didn't have, but he had decided he was going to do the matinee, but he was not doing the evening. Just like, oh, thank God, at least it's that way round.
Right.
So clearly I followed him backstage for the matinee. Right. And then Lily, fabulous Lily and Tam, who were playing Bill and Nancy, gave me 20 minutes before the half, and the kids Fagin's kids, which of course Fagin does so much with Fagin's gang. They came for 20 minutes, so I ran pick a pocket or two, and I ran with Mary Mitchell Campbell, who's the MD, reviewing the situation, which is a crazy Act 2 number that he does all on his own. That's really, you pull it around, and the orchestra has to follow you. And then I did the show, got through it, and it went brilliantly. If I say so myself, I don't know what the performance is like, but I felt brilliant. Wow. And then we had the Monday off, and then I couldn't believe my luck when Raoul wasn't able to come back Tuesday. So at least on Tuesday, I was able to get my agent in and my family in. And so it was amazing. And the second one, I felt like really at home.
Sure.
I've done this once. I got through it. I didn't forget any lines, but it was crazy. And I haven't understudied for 20 years. So it was humbling for me to take the job and go and suck it up because I wanted the role.
Sure.
But I was like, I'm doing nothing for 2 weeks. I want to be in an encore. I'll go and sit there and watch Raoul be fabulous. And he was. And then the theatre gods looked down on me and said, you can have 2 performances. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of adrenaline.
It's a perfect illustration of good things happening to good people, right? So if any of my tens of listeners are students of the craft, this is the perfect case of how to do the work on your own without having your hand held, right? You knew exactly what to do, what you needed that was accessible to you. You had the room for an hour every day during lunch. Great. I'm going to take advantage of that. You had the possibility of somebody to bounce lines off of. Great. Taking advantage of that. You had the advantage of following Raoul around during the matinee. All of those things that are so, audience, they don't know. They don't see any of that process. They just see the magic, right? And I was talking to Doug Sills on the show about Mr. Magoo, which we also did together.
And we'll get on to that.
Yeah, the idea that you have such a synthesized rehearsal process. It's so fast, but the audience sees something fully realized, and they think that it's magic, and they should. That's what they're paying for. And what they don't see is how desperately hard you work behind the scenes to make it look effortless. And it does. It looks effortless. That's the point. And there's so much care and effort that goes into it, and that's the testament of a pro. That's why.
Yeah. You've just got to care. I could have easily half known the lines, and I think encores would have been happy.
Sure.
If Raoul's off, Gavin, can you go on with the script?
Right.
They would have been happy because they would still have the show.
Yeah.
And encores is that thing where you should be holding the scripts anyway, but we know that over the years, encores has become full-on production shows in 2 weeks. But I guess I hadn't been doing anything for a while, so I was like, well, why have I said yes to this? I mean, I'm not ready to step in at a moment's notice. So I am. Do you know what? I don't like it when people say, I was really proud of myself, but that is the only time I would ever say it. I was proud of myself because I could have been a bit lazy and just took the paycheck and said, I was involved in that, didn't go on. But
that's not how you're wired.
There was something in the back of my head when there's a chance, so you better bloody be ready, because that would have been, for me, that would have been embarrassing,
of course,
to have been hired and to go on with the script and just to stand on the side and say the lines because I didn't learn the blocking.
Right.
Or I didn't learn the dance routines. So that's the one time really that I will pat myself on the back, because I'm not that sort. I let my wife pat me on the back or my friends.
Yes,
but I'm not the one to go, I was great. I was really proud of myself. But that time I really was. So
you should. I will sing your praises from here until doomsday. So Mary Poppins is the show that sort of changed everything for you, I assume.
Changed my life, the reason I live in America. My wife, Emily, she is American. We met in England. She trained in England. We were both working in the West End. I got Mary Poppins, which was a very big deal for me because I hadn't originated a role before. Wow. I'd never done a Cameron show. No, I've never done a Disney show either.
Wow.
But yeah, it was it was huge. It was the first time I experienced, Cameron is very good at looking after his new finds and presenting them to the press. To go out and have suit. Oh, you need a suit. So someone in the office will take you out to Ted Baker. We'll get you a suit and shirt and tie and pants and shoes and haircut just for the press release.
Sure.
So me and Laura Michelle Kelly outside the theatre 3 months before rehearsals were going to start when they announced us to, and all the press were there with Cameron.
Of course.
I mean, it was just very starry. And the people I met because of that show, I got to we got to do Step in Time on the roof of Buckingham Palace.
What?
For a TV special. My friend was sitting in St. James's Park, which is a park that's to the left of Buckingham Palace, and he was sitting there with his friends having a picnic, and he went, "Why am I hearing Gavin Lee's voice sing Chim Chimney, like blaring over London?" It's because they were playing back, because we pre-recorded the audio.
Yeah.
Playing back Chim Chimney, and my legs are dangling over the top of Buckingham Palace. I'm being with a harness on, so I don't fall off the front, singing Chim Chimney, and then all the chimneys doing Step in Time with Mary Poppins on top of the roof of Buckingham Palace, meeting the Queen. Then when coming to America, getting to do Super Cal at the Ford's Theatre.
For the Obamas.
With the Obamas in the front row, which was amazing enough. But then being told before that, "Oh, you and Laura Michelle, would you like to go to the White House for a cocktail hour before the show?" And then being dragged into a room and we don't know why, and being told, "Just checking on this card here from the footman," or whatever they're called at the White House.
Sure.
Gavin Lee and Laura Michelle Kelly. Am I saying that right? Yes. Okay, it's just for when you go and meet the Obamas. And walked into the room, and the Obamas are at their fireplace, where with cameras set up, and everyone that was in this show that they were watching got to have their photos with them. And to this day, it's the most exciting, awesome experience of my life. I was a fan of the president before that, but being in their presence. There's just something about their aura and how they present themselves, whether you believe that you're with them politically or not. Just the most perfect people.
That family carries magic with them. I believe.
Yes,
I've not met them, but
to this day, it's like I have met many mainly because of Mary Poppins. Yeah. Met many fabulous, famous people. Those two were the top, just because their aura. They had an aura about them, Tom. I looked at them. They were dolled up, ready to go to the theatre.
Sure.
But their smiles, their warmth, their aura, they had an aura around them. It was awesome.
I miss them. And I know I'm not alone. We as a country miss their everyday presence.
Oh, just there.
Constantly. Their grace, their empathy.
And their grace. Never a scandal. Oh.
Never a scandal.
Yes. But yeah, Mary Poppins, just brilliant. Just a brilliant experience. I mean, who knew when I got that job that I would stay with the show for 8 years?
Did
Tommy, you know about a long run.
8 years, please.
Yeah, 8 years, nothing.
Call me at 22.
2 years in London, 2 years on Broadway, 2 years traveling around America on the First National. Just an amazing experience because my wife had got into the show as well. And then 2 years back on Broadway to finish off the Broadway run. I mean, it brought me so much. I am forever in debt to Disney and Cameron Mackintosh.
As well, I'm forever in debt to Disney, so I know the feeling well. And I wasn't even in Poppins, and I miss that show. I miss its presence on Broadway. It lent such an air of fun and frivolity and class, and it was such an endless production.
I just look back at production photos and the very little video really that I have of the show. And it was just very classy.
Yeah.
Because you can easily say, oh, it's a Disney kids show. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a family show, and it was just very classy. And I think it really, the collaboration between Disney and Cameron Mackintosh to bring that show to what it ended up being, that was a great collaboration. I mean, neither of those parties had ever collaborated before. they wanted to be in charge.
Yeah, sure.
And the fact that they did collaborate and worked, I think, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but as far as I could see, for 8 years, that collaboration worked very well. And it produced a beautiful, heartwarming, spectacular show that I got to do some pretty spectacular things in.
And you
like,
were,
tap dancing upside down, on the
come
Casino.
on. Yeah. You were. Can one find this Top of Buckingham Palace performance on YouTube? I'm like, was that filmed? It had to.
No, it was. It was for a special Queen's celebration for one of her anniversaries or a birthday, and so there was this big show that was celebrating actually all. It was called Party at the Palace, and it was like Willy Wonka. It was I don't know if you put your name into a lot. I guess you did. Every kid in the country was able to put their name into a kind of a lottery, because there was basically a big kids party in the Palace Gardens. Every kid in England couldn't come.
Sure.
So they didn't want it to make just the rich kids get to come. So it really was every kid from every school could have a chance of getting a pair of tickets.
Wow.
And then there was they built a big stadium stage in the gardens, and there was this big show full of British stars, TV stars. But the whole show was based around children's authors, British children's authors. So there was a lot of Roald Dahl in there, and of course, P.L. Travers, who was actually Australian, but Mary Poppins is so English. It was just this one-off show that we got to start on the rooftop of the palace and end up on the stage doing Supercal. It was crazy.
That's extraordinary. Next up, you are, again, starring as Thénardier in Les Mis, which is, I got to see you do this role on Broadway, and it was life-changing for me just as a spectator. You were unbearably good. Funny and campy and smart and dangerous. It was just remarkable. And I'm a fan of Les Mis, but I've seen it quite a few times. And so I'm not often, surprised by it necessarily. And your take on Thénardier was so remarkable. So you're going to do it again, and you're going to do it with Bonnie Langford, who American audiences may not know as well as British audiences, but is fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, huge name. And I got to see both of you in Stephen Sondheim's old friends in the West End. Can I ask you, are you coming to town with that?
Well, nothing's been announced, but they will be announcing a cast to join Bernadette and Leia soon.
Sure. So who knows? We might keep our eyes
I'm doing Les Mis at the moment, but that's perhaps only till January-ish. We'll see.
Well,
but going back to Les Mis, little did I know when I got that role for the Broadway revival 2015, how delicious that character is. And, from having a career of being kind of your song and dance leading man, like you're singing in the rains, your Fred Astaire roles, Bert to some extent, but he's had a little bit more character about him, a little less, Bobby Child's Crazy for You.
Sure.
To then get given this role that doesn't dance, that hasn't got to sing nicely, it's so character based.
Yeah.
And to be the great thing about the Thénardiers in Les Mis is it's a miserable show in a good way.
Sure.
Everyone in the audience is crying. Everyone's going to die. Sorry, spoiler.
Yeah.
Thénardiers don't. But it was such a joy to be so bloody despicable and gross and conniving. And to know that after you've done Master of the House and hopefully you've grabbed the audience with your character.
Yeah.
Every other time you come on as Thénardier, you can feel the audience. You can the room goes, it's not going to be so dramatic. He's going to do something funny, hopefully. And so there was just this joy in, I know you like me, meaning Thénardier. I know you like the character, so I can do anything. And you're going to be with me because you want a bit of light relief because Eponine just died, because Fontaine's just died.
Sure, everyone you've invested in has died. Yeah.
And here comes Thénardier, pulling a kipper out of his ass, or, putting a red nose on, or being hideous and despicable.
Right.
So I've said since I've done that show, it's my favorite role I've ever played. And so this year, to get a phone call to say, do you want to do it again in this new world concert tour, world concert arena tour is what we're doing. So we're not in theaters, we're in arenas, like 5,000 seat arenas. It's being treated, if anyone's ever seen like the PBS specials, like the 10th anniversary of the Royal Albert Hall or the 25th anniversary, you know, we're all in costume, but there's kind of a bleachers with all the cast on it, looking a bit like the barricades. The orchestra is all on stage, and the amazing thing is, over the years, the orchestras for all Broadway shows and West End shows has got smaller. But we're going out with 25 in the orchestra. Great. And they've been having band calls next to us in rehearsals today, and I sneaked in for just one number, and it just takes your breath away how loud and full. Like, there's a harp. We're touring with a harp. Yeah. You know, the poor harpists they've been gone in the West End for years. Like, a harp is on a keyboard. Right. It's just programmed as a keyboard. Right. So it's going to be very exciting because it's going to be so big. But the thing I'm struggling with is you know me, Tom, I'll throw everything apart and I'll run around and I'll sweat even if I don't need to. Yeah. That's where I start from. And then most directors are like, let's pull it back a bit. Well, for this one, it's Gavin, let's pull back it a lot, because we're singing, we have earpieces in and, you know, mics, the head mics coming around, you know, but there's mic stands. So the concept of the concert is you get up and you sing your song to a mic stand. Wow. And you try, and it's okay if you're singing Stars or Bring Him Home or, you know, the soliloquies. Yeah. Because they're all songs that you're singing to God, or you're singing about your life and I'm about to die. When you've got this interaction songs like Master of the House, I'm used to, in the show, running around, pickpocketing, putting crap in people's drinks, stealing their pearls, you know, or everything. To have nothing. You don't get to do any of that. Wow. And then when you're doing a scene with someone like The Bargain with Jean Valjean, where, you know, you're singing to him, you're trying to get money out of him. But, Gavin, you know, you don't look at each other in the eye. You sing it all out front. And I'm finding it really hard. Oh, wow. You've got to think of it as a radio play. Yeah. Or someone said to me yesterday, imagine you're doing the cast album. Huh. And Madame Thénardier would be in the studio with you, but she'd be in her own cubicle with her headphones on, like you are. Yeah. So you wouldn't be able to react with it, but you'd be able to act with her at the mic. Yeah. So you have to act forward at the mic. And it's very hard not to turn and face someone and say, I know you're a con just like me. You have to do it up front. But that's the concept of this version. You're coming to hear the music and see these fabulous performances. It's all about the score. It's not about the staging. Right. And it's massive. But saying it's massive, so you've got to be big. There's also cameras everywhere with great big screens. Right. So there's massive close-ups. So for me, it's like, I want to be big and Thénardier, but I don't want the audience to go look at the screen and go, Jesus, calm down. You're gurning for Britain.
What a bonkers experiment this is. It's very exciting, though.
Yeah, Cameron is like, I don't know why we're getting ourselves into this, but we've gone into first gear and we've got to get up to fifth, you know. So it's happening. It's huge. You know, we only perform in the arena from Thursday to Sunday because I need Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get this, set it up. You know, you think, there's no set, but there is. It's a big, massive stationary set. And it's a big bridge that still comes down for Paris, and lighting for it, and the screens and the cameras. So it's a big deal, and it feels really different from the Broadway show. Right. So there's going to be a lot of learning as we go and we kind of do mostly Britain before we go off to Europe. But we're going to some lovely places in Europe.
Fabulous. And you're doing this till January.
Yeah, I'm doing this till January. Then I'm coming back to New York for no particular reason.
I have to tell you, and before we wrap up, but watching you sing "Could I Leave You" in Stephen Sondheim's Old Friends, is that the full title is Stephen Sondheim's Old Friends? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And you're talking about the sort of reconception of Les Mis. This Sondheim's Old Friends was part concert, part fully realized. 1 minute you're seeing folks in concert wear singing these gorgeous songs out of context from their original shows. And then the next minute you're seeing a full scene from Sweeney Todd with sets and costumes. And then a full scene from West Side Story with sets and costumes. It was just thrilling. And one of the out of context moments was you singing Could I Leave You from Follies, which is Phyllis's song. And, seeing Gavin Lee approach this text and this music in a completely different way from the way it's approached in Follies was so friggin' cool. Gavin, it was so smart. I mean, not that I want this to be about me, blowing smoke up your ass. It's not. It was so intentional, so smart, so specific. I just loved it. And of course, you're surrounded by greatness up there.
I mean, just to be on that stage with, I think there were 6 or 7 best actors. Olivier's up there.
Yeah, it was wild.
That I was getting to share the stage with, as well as Bernadette Peters and Lea Salonga.
Right.
And then, when I was asked to it's how random it was on the last performance of Oliver. So I had my big bang and my 2 shows in Oliver at the end of the first week, going to the second week. And so this was on the Sunday of the final show. So I was just sitting in the dressing room at Encores by then.
Right.
But that morning, and I believe it's because I got on for Fagin. Because, of course, people won't know this, but Oliver is Cameron Mackintosh's property.
Yeah.
He owns the rights to that fabulous musical. So he allowed Encores to do it. And he was there for the meet and greet, but then he was off somewhere around the world putting another production on. But he had his sort of little spies there the whole time to report back. And I can only guess that it got reported back that I got on and did an okay job. And then suddenly, would you like to self-tape for Old Friends happening in the West End? These are the 3 songs that will be your features, as well as the other chorus numbers that we're all in, someone else. Can you self-tape them by Sunday? It's like, I got it, got it on Saturday. So quickly hired and I had to be there for 2 Oliver shows, even though I wasn't on. So quickly self-taped, hired a studio, self-taped and sent them off. But the 3 numbers that I think are my standouts is I get to do The Little Things You Do Together with one of the actresses. So a great song to do as a duet.
Yep.
Like a married couple that's falling apart, because of course the lyrics at the end are getting a divorce together. So brilliant song. And then I had to do Everybody Ought to Have a Maid from Forum, which of course is a very fun vaudeville music hall, typical Gavin Lee number. I've been doing those sort of, the funny guy that's a little bit camp all my life.
Sure.
But then to say, and Could I Leave You from Follies? I was like, this now makes the job I really want, to have an audience see me do something very dramatic like that.
Yeah.
So of course I listened to other cast albums, of the women who's played that role. And of course I watched the amazing Jan Maxwell, who was the last Phyllis on Broadway, the last in the revival. I watched a YouTube video of her. She is screaming at him in the end, and she's fabulous. Bless her, God rest her soul. But just a brilliant performance. So looked at that and went, okay, that's how far she went.
Yeah.
How far shall I go? But of course, it's a woman's song, and there's that line about sleeping with a boy in the grass. Yep. But I go and do that in front, and I've said, so is the lyrics staying the same, or is it a girl in the grass? No, it's a boy in the grass. So okay, so we're saying it's a gay relationship that's falling apart. Okay, that leads me somewhere.
Yep.
And they were great with everyone's solos. It's like, come with what you think it should be, and then the director tweaked and played around with it, and so I just loved it. I loved it. Of course, it was the highlight of my show. I loved the whole show because I'm singing every single Sondheim number that I've ever wanted to sing. But just great, and it came at a great point in the show, because we all know that is a thing. Where does your song sit? It's like with SpongeBob. I think everyone thought Squidward was so amazing because his number sat smack in the middle of Act 2, and for the whole show, you're waiting for Squidward to have
his moment.
moment, and he gets it in exactly the right place with the right amount of, showbiz Broadway lights and a chorus line of sea anemones behind him. So, that Sondheim show is so well structured. Every single number is a massive show-stopping hit from every single actor. And when it comes to New York, I just pray that it has the talent and the ensembleness of the piece, because I hope you would agree, being an audience member, it didn't even feel like Bernadette and Leia were the stars.
No.
They are the stars.
Sure. But...
And I'm not saying, and they didn't want to be the stars. It's an ensemble piece, and hopefully it felt like you got your duet or your solo to do, and you almost tag teamed to the next actor. Your turn.
That's what it felt like.
You go and do another great Sondheim number, and it's just such a joyous piece. I just loved it, and hopefully I get to do it again.
I hope so too, selfishly. New York audiences are going to embrace it. They're going to love it.
Oh, yes.
They're absolutely going to love it. Sometimes one of them.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. My friend, I got to let you go. Thank you, half hour, and we're already over a half an hour. But what?
I know. You get me on a podcast now.
I love it.
You're like, Jesus, Gavin, you could draw breath.
Oh, I just love seeing you. Please give my love to M. How old are the kids now?
I've left my wife and kids again to come to England for a few months. They are 13, 11 and 7.
Oh my God.
New schools are starting this September,
Sure.
So that's all happening, and I'm not there again, so
but
it's only
be.
a quick 4 months I'm away this time, and then I'll be back in New York for a while. So
can't wait.
But they're good. Maplewood's good.
Good.
I'm sure all your listeners now know that everyone who doesn't live in New York, who's an actor, they live in Maplewood.
I love you, my friend. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for giving me some of your time, and have a great tech process, and go enjoy those arenas and microphones. And
I will, and I'll see you back in NYC
very soon. I love you, friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, half hour.
Boxland Media. Think big.